Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? Welcome back to another Super Beat video. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I know I've been gone for a little bit, but we're back. We're diving back into the action. I've got something a little different than we've done historically. I figured it would be a good time to kind of assess the game and the roster as a whole and do a tier list. Everybody loves tier lists. Everybody's doing tier lists, right? So, I think we'll just go ahead. We'll dive right into the video. Just a disclaimer. This is not by any means a objective placement of these characters. I think Predecessor and Omega they do a relatively great job of keeping the game pretty well balanced for the most part, I think. So on any given day, a lot of these guys can fluctuate up or down a spot or two. And also the variance of the pilot. So the person using them from day to day is obviously it's going to be a little volatile. But that being said, we're going to go on the sort of general assumption that this is like a middle of the pack gold player solo queue experience. That we will kind of rate these guys on, because you're not always going to be with a 5-stack. You're not always going to be playing in a PCC type setting. But yeah, I think we covered all our bases. We can go ahead and dive in. So it looks like everybody's in, what is this? Just alphabetical order up through Zarus for some reason. I'm not sure why Sparrow is at the back of the pack. I was thinking release order. But then Sparrow's just kind of oddly here. Anyway, I digress. We will just go right down the line. We'll start alphabetically and start with Countess, whom I think is kind of on the up and up. I think she's a solid pick, especially coming out of the jungle right now. I think she is always going to be viable in terms of getting to the back line, exploding a single target, and then just getting out. Even if you're building her with the more tankier build, she's still going to be able to get in the back line, harass, and just be a general nuisance, getting in and out, slippery, hard to kill type of hero. She's never really going to be bad in a solo queue setting, I don't think. So, and again, all of these, I'll say now, all of these guys may be subject to change a spot or two, but this is just right off the dome. I've got no notes, no prep or anything. Just going right off the brain, with a gut reaction. So Countess, average. I think she's in a solid spot. Maybe I should change that wording. Less average and just solid, right? A fine pick. Maybe I should go through all of those real quick, actually. So S tier, those are going to be the guys you are going to take. Those are the insta-lock characters, as I call them. You should have one on your team in probably every game if you can afford it. But these are heroes that are borderline broken, but are just very good in my opinion. Very strong, again, not quite as good as the insta-lock characters, but still a very strong hero, better than their counterparts in their similar roles. Solid, we just talked about. These guys maybe have a few more exploits or bad matchups that they go into, so maybe you want to err on the side of good piloting before you consider taking these guys over one of their A or S tier counterparts. It's complicated category. We'll get into that because there are a few heroes that I think don't fit in any of these four just because of their nature, and we'll dive more into that on a hero-by-hero basis. But finally, C tier, which may be a little harsh, but these guys are not even at gunpoint. Right now, you should probably not be touching these characters at all. And there's only a few that I can think of off the brain that are going to fall into this category. Maybe there'll end up being more, but I think there's only a couple. Anyway, with that all out of the way, we will surge forward. We've got Crunch. Crunch is still, I think, very strong. He's still excellent at he's still very excellent at 1v1s. Even in the jungle, even in the offlane, wherever you're playing this guy, you're gonna get value. Yes, he has bad matchups. Yes, he's maybe not as oppressive as he used to be, but I think, again, in a gold solo queue setting, if you know how to pilot Crunch, you're gonna get value out of him. at least in the sort of early to mid-game phases. Maybe he falls off a little bit at the end, especially as you run into more heroes that have silences or CC, and they just kind of communicate, focus, and lock you down. He becomes a little less valuable, but even so, he's very disruptive. So I think A is a good spot to slot him in there. Dekker. Dekker is insta-lock. She is... let me settle in here. Dekker is very good. She is probably the best support in the game. Maybe not even probably. Maybe just hands down. But an incredible array of setup. An incredible array of peel. If you have knowledge of how to pilot Dekker, you can single-handedly coax your team into wins and picks. And you can do it in a multitude of ways, be it stuns, be it traps, or even just sheer damage. I know there are some damage builds floating around out there where she just hits like a bus, but Dekker is very, very solid. Usually never a bad pick. Drongo, I don't know how I feel about Drongo. I haven't played him in a while. More on that later, but I think he's still... I'm going to put him in A tier because I think he is one of the better carries. He's got great self-peel. He can get himself out of kind of sticky situations. The silence is an added bonus, and just the sheer amount of burst damage that he can do on the tail end of his ability kit. I mean, it's a lot. So he's very solid, but ultimately at the end of the day, he points and shoots, right? He's not doing anything too crazy. Moving on, Feng Mao. Again, another hero I haven't played in a while, but he is still very strong, I think. I think he's one of the stronger heroes in the game right now, especially coming out of the off lane. He has a lot of great matchups. And he's one of those heroes that benefits more the better you know how to play him, right? And there's a couple of those that we'll talk about in the sort of it's complicated section, but Feng Mao is one that increases in value contributed to your team the better you are with the guy. So if you're bad, he's not going to be quite as good. Maybe he falls into a B tier or a C tier if you're just atrocious with him. But again, the average gold player, I think he's going to be a very strong, very elusive and mobile character who can get in, disrupt the back line, and get out. So he's very strong in my opinion, right? Gadget. Me personally, I would put her here in not even a gunpoint just because of how many more mages are vastly more exciting to play and vastly more, I think, team-oriented. Gadget's very good at zoning. She's very good at I guess, helping to take objective or making it much more stressful for the enemy. But I would never take her, I don't think. Not now. Not when there's many more better options. But that being said, I don't think she's inherently that bad. I think she does still do good damage once she hits kind of middle of the game and she starts to scale. You can actually start to kind of play the character. I don't think she's bad. I think there are just better picks. So you can put her in the C tier if you enjoy, hat throw simulator. You can have some fun with her, I suppose. Moving on. Gideon. Gideon is very good. I don't think I'm going to worry about ordering these guys. Or maybe I do. I don't know. We'll see. Gideon is very good. I think he goes into A tier easily. The sheer amount of mobility, damage, and honestly, man, I know his ult gets a lot of shit, but it's still really strong, especially at lower elos when people might not know how to deal with it as well, especially if he's running True Silver. Gideon gets a great uptick in team utility, being able to drop that ult on an objective or on a team fight that's already broken out. Like, he's strong. And my 5-stack that I actually play with, we abuse Gideon. I mean, we play him pretty much every game. We've got a 1-trick that uses him, and being able to just portal your entire team, like communication, to portal your entire team in or out of an objective or in or out of a team fight is a huge system shock to the enemy if they're not prepared for it. That's just a little tidbit that doesn't, I don't think that makes him higher or lower on the list, but still a very strong consideration. Greystone. This character I've never understood. Just the appeal of him. He lives, like that's kind of his thing. He lives, and if you feed him, he lives and schwacks you a bit. But I think he's kind of poop. So I'll put him in B tier because that is biased. Like I think he's fucking boring, honestly. But that being said, I appreciate his value in being able to jump into the back line, harass the carry, live forever, and then just be able to waddle away, right? There is obvious value in that, and we won't overlook that, but I just think there's better tools. I think there's better tanks, I think there's better disruptors. I play him if you want, but there are people who do his job better. Speaking of, Grux. Grux is very good in the offlane, especially, again, in the lower tiers. As you go up the ranks, you'll hear people say this all the time, Grux becomes, less and less and less good. But I think, again, in that sort of middle of the pack, gold, sort of plat area, Grux he's still solid, even being on the backside of a few nerfs now. They schwacked his, what was it, his bleed, I think it was, or his passive, the double chop? It was one of the two, but he got some buffs to his Q to kind of balance it out, and he's still just one of those easy to pick up characters where you hold W, you run down anybody in your lane, and you just kill things. I think he's infinitely better in the offlane. Maybe if we're playing him out of the jungle, he drops down to just fine, a solid pick. But I think in the offlane right now, he's still quite strong. Howie, same spot. I think Howie is a can't go wrong mid lane. The ability to just pick a person on the enemy team and tell them they don't get to play the game anymore, basically. That is a huge ability to have. And that's basically what Howie gives you, especially if you're running some kind of spell shield like Spellbreaker or Mesmer. I don't know if you'd ever run Mesmer on this character, but anyway, you fly up in the air, you hit somebody with your ult, and they just kind of cease to exist. A squishy, that is. Howie is great at that part. Yeah, maybe that's it. Hard stop. Howie's great. I think he's a very fine pick. He's a little chunky, like his hitbox is big, so maybe there's some lack of value there. You're a little easier to hit, maybe. But I mean, he's got great utility in his mine. He can displace people. He can slow people. He has great wave clear. There's nothing not to love about this guy. Kallari. She is the first contestant in the It's Complicated section, and I originally wasn't going to do this. I was going to make it more of a, like, if you're good thing, but I think these are characters that merit a bit more, conversation because they are a tad nuanced, right? A Kallari in the right hands is devastating, but it also relies on the enemy team kind of not knowing how to deal with her, right? So it's kind of this strange, again, nuanced combination where your pilot is a colossal factor into how good or bad she is, and the game at large is just a huge factor in how much value you're going to get from this character. So it's a razor's edge between the two. Yes, she has, undoubtable snowball potential. She can run away with a game, but she can also do nothing. There are some games where she just goes, she gets 1 or 2 kills. She never touches a Fangtooth. I think we've all had those Kallari players. Her clear is kind of bad. I think she can suffer from that. But overall, I think if you're going to play her, make sure you have some semblance of knowledge of how she should be played. Maybe save it for like a duo or a trio game where you can get some communication. But yeah, that's kind of where she lands. Khaimera, he's our second installment in the Insta-Lock category. This dude is he's just so good. The ability to 1v1 basically any jungler in their own territory, kind of at any stage of the game, but especially in the early game. You can bully people off objectives, you can take objectives yourself, you never take any damage during your clear, you have a great initiate on ganks, you have a cleanse that can get you out of, it's a 30-second get-out-of-jail-free card. The guy's nuts, and he's just strong, too. He does a ton of damage. You should be playing Khaimera, especially if you're new to the game, if you're new to the jungle position. You cannot go wrong with him. Kira. Kira, to me, falls in I think the B category. Maybe she goes up to A. Maybe she's somewhere here where it's like top of B, end of A. For me, she falls in the B category just because, oh man, I don't know. I feel like I would just rather play, Drongo, or I won't spoil it, some of the other carries that are going to pop up. She's very mobile. She has a great ultimate. She has good, what's it called? The word is completely escaping me. Assassinate, but that's, I guess that's not the word. She has presence in her assassinate that she can just kill you with her Q if she has enough stacks on you. She's great. Like she's a solid pick. And I frankly just think she doesn't come up here again because of the other carries that are in the position, right? Belica. Belica was on she was another one that was on the end of some nerfs, but I think she's still a very good character. She might kind of fall. No, I think she definitely falls in the very strong category. She still does a buttload of damage, especially in the end game if you build her out. I think she just loses a little bit of viability in the early game, maybe not being able to get away with quite as much free damage. But outside of that, she's still gonna nuke people, right? Like she's still the same character more or less. Providing CC to your team, a free wombo combo in the stun bomb, and of course the lock-on pistol from forever away. You can blink in, just delete somebody. Obvious value in Belica, still very strong. Morigesh. I don't think you should ever play this character right now. I think right now you can toss Mori in a trash can and kind of forget she exists. Sorry, my dog's chewing on a bone. She is too reliant on the enemy team kind of being bozos, I think, to get any real value. If you are playing a team that is competent, I don't think Morigesh does anything. I think she just is bad, personally. Don't play that character. There's much better options. Hard to stop. Murdock. For me, Insta-Lock. This might be controversial because at the end of the day, he is a very similar point and shoot like Kira and Drongo, but I think Murdock, I've been playing a ton of Murdock recently, and this dude is just hands down, I think, the top two carry in the game. And he ain't number 2, I'll tell you that. Dude has self-peel. He can zone with his mines and play around them, so enemies have a really tough time getting to him. He's got a knockback in his shotgun. He has a global map-wide ult that pierces terrain. He has speedy boots to help him either get out or get back in. And the dude just does so much damage. In this new patch with Grim, and this is a bit of a spoiler as to where he'll be placed, the guy consistently kills Grim in 3 shots. If you build his normal build, which is like Vanquisher, Lightning Hawk, Demolisher, Imperator, those kind of items, you can rely with the Pacifier Crest, you can consistently kill Grim in 3 bullets. 4 bullets, right? Which is just absolutely absurd. I think he's phenomenal, and with a good support by his side, the dude is untouchable. Play him a lot. Muriel. I think Muriel is strong, but again, she's kind of in this middle spot, right between solid and right between very strong. She is definitely aggressively minded. She's looking to get more damage and enhance the damage that your team does. But there's a trade-off for that. Now you don't have any CC. You really only have a slow. So her peel is a little bit lacking. Her shields are fine. Her damage is good. The global ult is really good. And I think if you have comms with a good Muriel, that can be very dangerous in duo lane. Narbash solo queue, I think, is solid. I think he's, again, kind of in this am I cheating? He's kind of in this strange in-between spot. I think he is a solid pick. Maybe we put him top of solid. But Narbash, giving your team extra HP equals the ability to basically make mistakes, right? You're giving your team easy mode, essentially, as Narbash. I think you have a great CC in his kit through Thunk. You have heals, you have speed boost, and his ultimate, while it can be tricky to land sometimes, it's very telegraphed. You can hit it through walls or around corners or just blink into the middle of combat. I think he deserves solid. I think he's fine. He's a good pick. FaZe is kind of in this similar spot with Kallari, I think, and maybe she just goes to solid for me. I don't know. Hey, quiet down. I hate noise. FaZe is tough because if I'm gonna leave her in, it's complicated, because if you have a FaZe that does not know what they're doing, she is actively harming your team. She is making your team worse. If you have a good FaZe, someone who knows what they're doing, that's good. You have a pocketed healer for your carry or whomever she's camping out. It's very good. So I think that's a fair spot to put her. Rampage is very strong. I think he would go in S tier if Kai didn't exist, but he is still a phenomenal jungler right now. Yeah, again, hard stop. He is a phenomenal jungler right now. He is basically impossible to kill, especially inside the jungle. He has one of the best CCs in the game. Does a decent amount of damage too, surprisingly. I think people sleep on the amount of damage the Frogman can put out, but maybe a little more difficult to play than Kai, and maybe that's why he doesn't quite, reach up there. Less of fault to himself, and more just that Kai exists, right? Type of beat. Revenant. This hurts me because I love Rev. I was a Rev main for the longest time. But, man, I don't think you play this character. I don't think it's worth it right now. And maybe that's too harsh because, again, we're talking about a gold lobby, a gold solo queue player. The issue with Revenant is, and always has been, his mobility. The guy just dies. You're going to die to Kai, to Feng Mao, to, hell, a Gideon ult, right? Grux, if they touch you, this guy dies, right? And there's just not enough items or I don't know what it is, but this guy, he struggles. He struggles to counter that, basically. And I love him. He can absolutely run away with games. He does phenomenal crit numbers. But I don't know. I feel like it's not as engaging as when I'm playing Murdock or even when I'm playing, like a Twinblast. I love him. I don't think you play this character. I think there's better options. Riktor. Riktor, for me, goes in... Okay, here's the deal. I'm going to put him in Instalock, but he is one of those it's complicated characters. Maybe he doesn't go all the way to Instalock. Maybe he just goes to very strong, because the key to Riktor I think everybody knows this by now, is hitting your hooks. If you have a if you have a support character or an offlaner jungler, whoever's playing Riktor, if you have a Riktor who cannot hit their hooks, you are basically down a teammate. You are basically playing 5v4. Or 4v5, excuse me. And that is bad, right? The guy obviously gets more value the more hooks he hits, but I would say you've got to be hitting hooks if you're going to play this character, right? If you can do that, if you can manage to even just hit a handful of clutch hooks, you can single-handedly turn games around. A hook stun on a very important character is a recipe for winning games. And for that potential, he automatically goes to very strong just for that game-wrecking potential. I would put him in Instalock, I think. But, you know, I recognize maybe the pilots aren't quite as skilled to merit putting him in Instalock. Myself included, I'm absolutely horrible with him, for the record. Serath. She's another tough one. I think she lands in It's Complicated, because similar to Kallari, she is a character that absolutely can run away with a game. She has massive snowball potential, and if the enemy team allows her to get ahead, she will destroy your game. She becomes unkillable. But I don't think she is made that way by design. I think she's actually a relatively bad character. But I think it's unfair to put her in, you know, not even at gunpoint. I think you can absolutely play this character. You can absolutely get wins, but as you rank up, you are going to find that she becomes less good, if that sort of makes sense. Sevarog. Sevarog is good. He's a very good offlaner and a decent jungler as well. I think he goes in this unofficial category we've made up, in between kind of very strong and solid. I'm going to slot him in very strong because I'm thinking about his displacement, and he is a very good tank, right? If you need a tank role to fill on your team, Sevarog is always, he's very good at accomplishing that. The question just becomes, is he better at tanking than the rest of the roster? And I think in congruence with his abilities, I think he does earn this A tier spot. He's very good. He can do a lot of damage. He can lock you down. He's mobile, slippery, hard to get a hold of, and his ult can be a nightmare if he catches you out of position and is able to force you further out of position. The guy's just good. Yeah, we'll leave him in A tier. Shinbi. I don't know. I'll be transparent. I don't know where Shinbi's sitting right now. I think she's good still. I'm trying to remember. I haven't seen her in many games, but we know her kit is very good. The ability to just kind of dash through people, reposition constantly, poke constantly. You never run out of mana. You do a ton of damage. You have map-wide ult, essentially, right? You obviously got to hit people. It's not... You know what I'm saying. Anyway. Shinbi's very good. So I think we do put her up in very strong. She's a solid pick. She has great matchups in the off lane, and she can just be a nuisance and hard to kill. She's great at split pushing if her team lets her. I just had a thought with that, actually, because split pushing is difficult in solo queue. I kind of keep forgetting we're talking about gold solo queue. And while she is very good at it, I would say gold lobbies are typically not good at understanding split pushing. They die a lot of the time. So maybe that drops her to solid. Maybe. I'll let you guys decide. She's somewhere between those two. I think she's better than solid. I think she's a very good pick. Steel, Instalock. You should be playing this character. He's easy. He's free. He has 8,000 stuns. A single good initiate from a steal in the late game, in you know, the 30-minute marker or beyond. It's game winning. This guy single-handedly can destroy games. He's very good. You can play him in the jungle. You can play him in the offlane. You can play him as support. He's versatile. He's extremely safe for both you and your carry if you're playing support. Not much else to say about this guy. He's a beast. Faye. Faye, for me, I think is still very strong. She's one of the best ultimates in the game. She can box 1v1 with people. I think... I don't know. I think maybe she is just overshadowed a little bit by Gideon and Belica and maybe some of the other picks that we'll talk about here. No spoilers. But Faye is still very good in solo queue, especially if you can hit a couple people in your ultimate. Your team, I would hope, in gold, can typically follow up on them very well. So Faye goes in very strong for me. Twinblast. Twinblast is, he's definitely up here in these top two categories. I think he goes in Instalock because of sheer versatility. He has probably 4 viable different builds and play styles that you can use for him. On hit, attack speed, crit, if you really wanted to. You could do pen or what is it? Like ability damage, like magic. He is phenomenal. He's mobile, he's safe. He can farm from forever away with his grenades. His Q does a huge chunk of damage. He's extremely fun to play. That's a factor I think we should include. Twinblast is very good at the ADC role. Zarus. Zarus, again, I think goes into Instalock. He is hands down the best offlaner. Maybe in contention for top 2 or 3 jungle. I think he's extremely good in the jungle position. But he's another one who gets the S tier just out of, again, sheer versatility. You can build him as a bruiser, you can build him as an assassin, you can build him as a pure tank, and he can fill all of those 3 jobs very, very well. He's just a well-designed character. Maybe a little too well-designed. But very good. Play him in your games. I will say, in offlane, he does require quite a bit more finesse to play than someone like a Crunch or a Grux, where you're just kind of walking at someone and, taking your trades and whatever. He does require a little bit more strategy, so just do be aware of that. Sparrow. My gut says to put her high, because I do think she's strong and she can destroy games, but I'm going to land in it's complicated because Sparrow requires your entire team to play around her because of her limited uptime in running, Eviscerator and her ultimate and her E or whatever, her rapid fire. She has a period of time where she is the most dangerous apex predator on the planet, and outside of that, she's just fine. I think she's vulnerable. We'll say that. If your enemy team has any kind of coordination, and again, we're talking solo queue, right? If they have even some semblance of coordination and they focus you and your team does not help to keep you alive, this character is garbage. You will do nothing. Maybe you weaken one person to the point where your team gets a single kill, but most of the time, it requires your entire team to play around you. And that in and of itself is not a detriment. It just muddles the water a little bit. It gives it some nuance and variance where it's not as clear-cut and dry as maybe the rest of these guys are. Wraith. Wraith is another one that is complicated. He fits, I'll put him over here, because he fits in the boat, again, pilot skill. If you are good with this character, he is good. He is phenomenal. He's strong. He will destroy games. If you miss your abilities with him, he's butt. Never play him. And it looks, from the stats, it looks like the majority of people don't know how to play with him, because I think he's either sub 40 or near 40% win rate. So yeah, The better you are with Wraith, the better he is. Iggy and Scorch. I never understand this character. I never understand these types of characters either in MOBAs. You are playing turret simulator. You're playing balloons, tower defense, bro. Like that is not the game we want to be playing. I don't think. He doesn't do anything well, save maybe you can kind of zone off a particular area efficiently if you have, you know, a entire minute to get all of your turrets set up and whatnot. You can burst down objectives really well. I think that's it. But the guy's just boring. He's easily hands down the worst mid laner, I think. And I would just never play him in a million years, I don't think. Moving on from that atrocity. Kwang. The old Kwang. I think he goes in insta-lock. This character's just so good. You can play him out of jungle. You can play him out of offlane. My particular favorite is playing this dude in support. I think he's nuts in support, especially if you can hit your tethers. Very good. Very durable. He's a nuisance if he gets into the backline because you just can't kill the guy. He does an absurd amount of damage, and he has great CC in the tether and the knockup. You should be playing him. You should be playing him. Period. Argus. Also the recipient of some much-needed nerfs, and probably still not enough. This character is busted. The ability to have a stun, a slow, a pull, and a infinite stream of stacking DPS. Oh, and let's not forget the nearly map-wide ult that pierces terrain. This character is absolutely bonkers. You should play him in pretty much every game you can. Do just be aware he's a tiny bit less strong than he was on release. He's a little less strong in the early game. So get a few more items online and then, you know, destroy the games. Grim. All right, this is the guy, right? He's our new toy. And as I was a huge Grim fan in Paragon, and this kind of breaks my heart to say, but I don't think you touch this character. I can't explain it. I've played probably a dozen games with him at this point. I just don't think he's worth playing right now. His hitbox is massive. He is a bathtub with legs. And he is so squishy and does not do anything else or better or different than the rest of the ADC cast to justify the squishiness. He has a spell shield, which is phenomenal. That is an amazing ability to have on an ADC that can't be overstated. But, and his ult is very good when you get the opportunity to cast it. Having a ranged execute that goes basically the entire length of the lane is very good. But if I don't get to cast it because I died to Murdock, I'll bring up this example again because I'm traumatized. If I die to Murdock in 3 bullets, this character is never worth playing. I just don't care the scenario. Yeah, that was kind of my experience with him, is that you kind of don't get to play the game as a carry. You are not allowed to be aggressive in any context, I don't think. You have to be very passive, pokey. There are a couple of different builds you can run on him, which is nice. He adds magic damage to the foray. He adds magic damage to the roster, which is nice to have coming out of that ADC spot. But he's not worth it. He's never going to be a better pick. In his current state, he's never going to be a better pick than a Murdock or a Twinblast, I don't think. Hopefully we see some changes, but I think that's where he sits. He's just too volatile right now, man. But that's it, guys. I know this was a bit of a longer video. This was kind of just a dump of a stream of consciousness, so like I said, this is all entirely subjective. This is my opinion. This is what I've observed in the past, what was it, 3, 4, however many months it was that we've been kind of watching this game get crafted. Again, still in a great spot. Again, the majority of the roster is very playable, and everybody can move up and down. You know, if you have an argument for somebody, I'm certain, you know, there's an argument for people to be moved up or down a spot. But we'll stop the video there because it's already long enough. If you guys did enjoy this content, please don't forget to click the like button. It's right down there. It looks like this. It's a thumbs up. You've seen it a billion times before. It helps the algorithm, the YouTube algorithm, so much to push this video to more people like you. Also, if you're new around here, I know the content hasn't been coming out super regularly, but that I'm hoping will change. If you want to see more Predecessor content, click on the big red subscribe button. I'll put it over here somewhere so you can see what it looks like. But yeah, without any further ado, I hope you guys have an excellent weekend or week or whatever it is. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.